In this edition of Sports Page, we bring you a sport not so well known as some of the others, gliding. Although it's not a sport of British origin, it's growing in popularity from day to day all over the country, as was shown last year by the huge attendance at the National Gliding Championships at Camp Hill, Derbyshire. Up on the bleak Derbyshire hills, Sports Page cameramen found a record gathering of aeronautical talent from all over England. This National Championship meeting featured an ambitious programme of events, including a race southwards 90 miles to Dunstable, in which the winning pilot, Mr. G.H. Stevenson, clocked an average speed of over 42 miles an hour. And another less happy outing to Boston and back, in which the same pilot was the only one to complete even the first leg of the course. Of this meeting was Pilot L. Welch's crosswind flight under difficult conditions, 186 miles to Manston in Kent, which must rank with the greatest flights ever carried out in this country. And many pilots hurtling from the hilltop into the turbulent air got unexpected results. But the biggest surprise of all was laid on by three desperate characters who gave the pundits of British gliding something new for the rule book by staging this skillful but quite unorthodox formation beat-up of the spectators. But the real home of British gliding is in the clubs, where each weekend a mass of vehicles of varying appearance, from the frankly custard pie to the austerely professional, bring pilots and their machines to try conclusions with each other and the weather. Not many club members can run to a private machine, but those who can demonstrate that with experience and skill, it's less difficult than it appears to assemble the whole affair with very little help. The most popular method of getting the glider into the air is by pulling it along with a powerful winch until it is airborne. At 40 miles an hour, the wire screams over the drum, and the pilot climbs steeply, but ready at a second's notice to put the nose down and dive for dear life if the wire should break. The winchman never takes his eyes from the zooming glider as she rises 500, 600, 700 feet, and the angle of the wire gets nearer and nearer to the vertical. At 1,000 feet, the pilot pulls the release and the long steel wire snakes down, checked by a tiny parachute. This is a new refinement to reduce the danger from 1,000 feet of steel cable falling underway, drawing out the full length needed to pull off yet another glide. Overhead, one of the top-line pilots lets off steam in a series of blood-curdling maneuvers, while down below, Sports Page camera males, ever faithful to his public, shuts both eyes and takes off. Then from the ground it looked as if we might soon be one short in the camera department, as another glung in, and for a breathtaking moment the two machines seemed bound to crash. But Smales's camera shows how deceptive height can be, and the second machine slid by harmlessly below. With the alarms and excursions over, Sports Page was able for a time to swing gently in the quiet air, and to understand something of the unique mixture of peace and thrills that is the fascination of gliding. Coming into land is also quite a thrill for newcomers to gliding, and from the passenger seat the gently descending machine seems to be hurtling down to earth at supersonic speed. The sensation of speed is largely an illusion, but to anyone trying to hold a heavy camera, this bump is definitely not. But a first flight is a great experience. And now in this spot on Sports Page, we're very lucky to have with us here a real top liner from gliding, Mr. Philip Wills. And I know he's not going to like this question, but I'm going to ask him to tell you how many times he's won the National Gliding Championship.
Well, 4 times, in 1937, 47, 49 and 50.
Well, so you can see he's quite an expert. And I wonder if you'd like to tell us why you took up gliding and when you started.
I think it's the natural evolution of anybody who goes in for flying for sport. I had a light aeroplane of my own in 1929, and when I had got through that, a friend of mine took up gliding, and I was inveigled into it and found it the real answer to the sporting enthusiast.
Well, that seems a very good reason. You must have spent many hours gliding through the air. Perhaps you could tell us some of the exciting experiences you had, or your most exciting one.
Well, I think one I shall always remember is the 100-kilometre triangular race, which was laid on for the Swiss 1948 World Gliding Championships.
These pictures were taken by Swiss cameramen during the actual flight to which Mr. Wills referred, and in which, incidentally, he set up a British speed record for the triangular course of 100 kilometres. Something of the special quality of gliding thrills is illustrated by Mr. Wills's own story.
At first, in these alpine flights, one was always very anxious to keep high enough, always to be able to reach a landing point if anything went wrong. But on this particular day, you soon found the conditions were so good that that was unnecessary. After Meritorious we turned south, and past Rosa, the view was terrific. The air was quite clear at these tremendous heights. You could see mountains snow-capped in midsummer in all directions, and one shot along flying fast, eating a bit of chocolate and sniffing your oxygen to keep you going. And when I got back to Meritorious, I landed feeling very pleased with myself, having averaged about 29 miles an hour on a flight I never thought I'd finish at all. And then I found, to my surprise, that this Swiss pilot had got round at 36 miles an hour and got a world record.
That story Mr. Wills has just told us represents one of the highest peaks of achievement in the modern gliding world. But I wonder if you realize it might never have taken place at all if it hadn't been for the genius of Leonardo DaVinci in the 15th century, who designed, though he never actually built, several flying machines. At the height of the Italian Renaissance some 500 years ago, Leonardo da Vinci produced a number of designs for flying machines, which, although they never flew, mainly through a lack of suitable power source, pointed the way for a long line of daring and original experimenters in human flight. In fact, except for the rather over-optimistic pedal arrangement underneath, Leonardo's glider was not so very different from the machine of Otto Lilienthal, the German inventor, who was the first man to make gliding a regular practice. He had some 2,000 flights to his credit when in 1896 he died, as had so many of his predecessors, in a crash caused by a sudden gust of wind. And now a quiz picture. What part of a glider is this? It's the quick release mechanism in the nose. And you've already seen this object in the film. There it is, the airspeed indicator tube. And now we come to question time in Sports Page, when we usually get famous film stars to send in questions to try and stump out Leslie Welch. That is, with other sports. But with gliding, we thought it would be a little bit unfair. There are no official records for Leslie to look up, and we thought it'd be rather like shooting a sitting rabbit. And so, talking of stumping, Leslie, are you ever caught out?
Yes, Brian, on many occasions since I started this.
Well, would you like to give us your most embarrassing moment, sir?
My most embarrassing moment? Oh, I think it was in southern Italy at the Petrozelli Theatre, Bari. I was in the middle of the act, and a chappie in the audience got up and said, "Could you tell me the last man to box Gentleman Jim Corbett?" Well, I thought it was rather a weird question, the last man to box Corbett. So I said, beyond the fact that Corbett won the world's heavyweight title in 1892, held it for 5 years and lost it in 1897 to Bob Fitzsimmons, I'm afraid I can't tell you who was actually the last man. Perhaps you could. And our friend at the back and his 12 mates with him said, "Oh, yes, the Undertaker." Was my face red?
Well, I should even Leslie Welch hadn't got an answer to that one. And now, on my other side, I have an expert in a rather different field. He designs and constructs these gliders, and I'm going to ask him to tell us something about the technicalities of this job.
Yes, I should be delighted. But as it's my favourite topic, I should imagine it'll take hours and hours. So don't you think it's better if we went over to the workshops and saw the things constructed, stage by stage?
Well, that suits me fine. Let's go. In the Yorkshire factory of our expert, we find a skilled operative at work on part of the inner structure of a glider's wing. Glue is used a lot in making gliders, but a very special sort that set under pressure will give a join stronger even than the spruce or plywood components from which the wing is constructed. Inspection and tests at every stage of manufacture are just as important in building gliders as in building conventional aircraft. As soon as the main framework of the wing has been assembled with the strong laminated frames fitted to the spruce cross members, it's time to start putting on the fabric cover. The light cotton material is stretched over the frame and temporarily pinned into position. This pinning device only holds the fabric down until it has been coated with glue and special dope, so that it becomes virtually welded to the structure and stretched smoothly and tightly over the whole wing. About 2/3 of the men working in this factory are fully skilled in their various trades, for so much individual attention is called for that there are relatively few parts of the process suitable for unskilled labor. A very important part of the later stages of construction is exact and careful testing of all the controls. But for my money, easily the most entertaining bit is making these handsome transparent cockpit covers that give such an air of professional efficiency to modern gliders. And believe it or not, they blow them up just like balloons. They let them cool for a bit under air pressure, and there you have a lovely shiny dome of solid perspex. At about this time in sports page, I usually try and match the experts with a story of my own. Well, dealing with gliding, I thought it would be an awful pity if we didn't try and show the great part they played in the war, and from my own personal experience, the great part they played in the crossing of the Rhine. On the 24th of March, 1945, over 1,300 British and American gliders crossed the Rhine into central Germany. The gliders, once the pilot had picked his landing place, had to land, whether or not it looked as attractive on closer inspection. But the gliders got the troops in, and they and their RAF towing aircraft performed a magnificent task. In the face of tough opposition, battalion after battalion swept in under the hands of the Army's newest force, the Glider Pilot Regiment. Experimentally, and on some occasions operationally, the apparently crazy maneuver of snatching off is performed. When landing is impossible, a long nylon rope is held up between poles, and an aircraft hooks it up and pulls the glider bodily off the ground. Nowadays, the Royal Air Force recognizes gliding as a valuable, safe and inexpensive method of training air-minded boys. Members from schools and colleges over a wide area attend this course also, which is only one of 50 for the boys of the ATC and CCF. It takes about 30 launches before one of these boys can qualify for a certificate. And of course, the weather is very much of a factor in deciding how long the training will take in terms of days. Otherwise, medical fitness, parents' consent, and a necessary amount of ground training are the qualifications for becoming a young glider pilot. This is a cadet getting ready to take off on his first solo flight. It's a big moment for all concerned, from the almost fledged pilot himself to the instructor responsible for his training. But nobody seems particularly nervous as the signal is given and the winch begins to turn. With proper pride, the instructor watches his pupil as he soars upward into the summer sky. Another convert to the gentle art of gliding, and another of those young men and boys upon whom Britain depends to keep us in the forefront of the world of flight. Take up gliding, what ought they to do to start?
Well, there are a number of clubs all over the country, but the simple answer is to write the British Gliding Association in London.
Well, it's up to you now. And of course, our wonder boy on my left, Leslie Welch, and we've done something I think has never been done before in a program in which he's taken part. We haven't asked him a single question.
And thank you very much, Brian. I should be very, very relieved that such was the case.
All right, thank you, Leslie. Well, I don't know about you, but I didn't know a great deal about gliding before this picture. It certainly has a unique appeal, and I, for one, am very glad to have had giving a warm welcome to this growing youngster in the ranks of favourite British sports.